the taste of pudding is in the eating. The result on the ground does not show that we have made enough effort. Actually, we see today a more divided Nigeria than we saw even 10, 15, 20 years ago.
You think so? Why do you feel that way?
The tension across the nation. You know, I grew up at a time when you could go to any part of Nigeria and feel unthreatened. I don't think you can do that today.
No, but hasn't that been the story in the past, what, 18, 20 years in the country?
Well, which shows, if you look at the progression of the nation from 1960 to date, it's a regression, not a progression. That's the point. You have to look at historically. You have to look at the trend. We can't just look at the last 18 years. You have to go back to where we started. So what has happened in the modern time, I'm not sure what we are not doing right, but we are not building an inclusive, comprehensive community where everybody feels that they belong.
How do we do this, really? It seems we just know what the problem is, and to some extent, we know what the solution is. So how do we go about it?
We have to look at nations that have done this, and one of my favorite ones is Singapore. Everything begins and ends with leadership. A leader must come in, have a clear vision of what you want to achieve. You don't have to address all problems, but you must know the critical ones. Lee Kuan Yew, the former Prime Minister of Singapore, the nation he and his team inherited were very much like Nigeria today. Poverty, indiscipline, but he made key decisions. First of all, he decided that he wanted to develop a disciplined society, because everything begins with discipline. So he enforced the law, and he himself didn't exempt himself from the same law. He didn't exempt his family members from the same law. So there's a wonderful book, and I'm sure you've read it. It's called Good to Great by Jim Collins. He says, how do you journey from average to greatness? He says it starts with disciplined people. If you don't deliberately develop disciplined leadership and disciplined followership, it doesn't matter how good your policy, they will trample on it.
Now, you see, when you take a look at the Singapore story, pick up one individual.
Yes.
And this was one individual who I would say made up his mind to turn around his country for the better. Exactly. And of course, he also had this attribute you talked about, issue of discipline. We have an election coming next year where you sit and talk to some Nigerians to say, who do you think is going to be a likely candidate? Who do you think you should have up there as the next president?
Yes.
The silence. Because the question everyone keeps asking is, show me a better candidate. Who is in front of us right now? Who is that disciplined person that we can put forward as the next leader? Do you think in the political space such an individual exists? Take a look at our political parties, the primaries that have actually taken place, the inner wranglings that are going on in those parties. Do you think such a person can emerge from the kind of political system we run in the country today?
I think it's possible, but I think it begins by first training our people to choose correctly, so that they don't choose by emotion, they don't choose by charisma, because some of these people that have these qualities are often not charismatic. They are deliberate, they are deep thinkers, they are often reserved, but our culture tends to emphasize this charisma, ability to charm, which it's okay, but doesn't really indicate, it's not a good indicator of good leadership.
Has anyone even successfully charmed anyone so far? I mean, when it comes to the choice you have to make at the end of the day, and you talk about choosing wisely, it seems the Nigerian populace is left with a very little window from talking about what the parties present to you at the end of the day. And these candidates, of course, are determined by the money bags in these political parties. There's a lot of money to emerge at the end of the day. So when you're left with just that option that the parties give you, how do we then choose correctly?
Well, I'm not too sure I agree that we are always left. If we become part of the process, that's why we encourage people. Many good people are not politically involved. because they have the general attitude that I don't want to mess with it. So in the process, we leave it in the hands of those who actually lack the moral capacity.
Or do you think they've tried, but they do not have the financial clout to go on and fight dirty?
Well, but we must, look, when he made a profound observation when he visited Nigeria in 1966. Okay. He was here, he left a few days before the coup of 1966 took place. He made an observation. He said that Africans, their best and the brightest, often give up the fight and even seek refuge abroad. And he said if we continue to do that, the fight for recovery will be long. And that's what has happened. The elite, the enlightened people must not give up the fight easily. I'm sorry to say, we lack the staying power. We need to get involved and fight to the end. And until we do that, we will continue to be left with whatever is.
Let's just be very frank with ourselves. Yes, we have just a few months, if you ask me, less than a year.
That's correct.
To elections. When you talk about the fact that we need to train this kind of individuals we want to see, leadership training is still on the low on this part. Do you think we have enough time to get that political party or have the political party present that ideal candidate? Or are we just about to sit back and experience the same of the same?
Actually, my recommendation at this time is, first of all, let's look for a platform that will create the environment to achieve what we want in the long term. And that will require convincing the audience not to go with the flow, but to be deliberate in choosing first the platform, because the platform produces the leader. If we are deliberate and careful in choosing the platform, we may not get the right person now, but at least the platform with its enabling environment will create the right person in the future. But if you have the wrong platform, history has clearly shown that they hardly ever produce the right person.
I've been really keeping my fingers crossed on this issue of the right platform. In the past, growing up, I used to hear things like Nigerians are skeptical of the government.
Yes.
Today, Nigerians are actually skeptical of one another. So when you emerge or you step forward with true intentions, the question is, who is he or she fronting for? How are we sure you're not about to get in there in order for you to also loot funds and enrich yourself at the end of the day? Do you think the issue of mistrust is something we need to tackle, or you think that is not an issue at all?
It is a major issue. We are highly mistrustful of each other. We are suspicious, and we have reasons to be. We have been burnt many times in the past. But it has been said that trust begets trust. We have to learn to trust. But we also need to put measures to monitor so that you just don't trust, blindly. You put measures to monitor and get evidence that that trust is worth it. When you trust and don't monitor, then you fall into that foolish.
Interesting.